and welcome to the Happya Life podcast. I'm Clare Deacon, and today I want to hold something with you that deserves more honesty than it usually gets: grief. Not the version described in books or talked about in terms of stages and timelines, the real version, the one that doesn't behave the way you were told it would. The one that's bigger and stranger and more complicated than anyone prepared you for. Because here's the thing: most people have a picture in their mind of what grief is supposed to look like. And when your grief doesn't match that picture, when it includes things other than sadness, when it doesn't follow a timeline, when it surfaces at inconvenient moments and in uncomfortable forms, you can end up wondering if you're doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. What you're experiencing is what grief actually is. And I think understanding that matters enormously. I want to talk about this slowly today with care, because this isn't easy territory and it deserves space. Let me start by expanding the picture. Grief includes sadness. Of course it does. It also includes anger, sometimes a great deal of anger. And that anger can be frightening when you don't expect it or don't know what to do with it. Grief includes numbness, periods where you feel very little or where you function with a kind of mechanical efficiency that surprises you. And then you feel guilty for functioning because functioning feels like a betrayal of the loss. Grief includes relief in some bereavements and the guilt that almost always comes alongside that sense of relief. Grief includes confusion, a disorientation in your daily life, in your sense of who you are, in the way you relate to the future. Grief includes anxiety, a heightened awareness of loss and impermanence that makes ordinary life feel fragile in a way it didn't before. And grief includes the ambush, the wave that arrives without warning in the middle of something completely ordinary. The grief that finds you in the supermarket or on a walk or when a song comes on that you weren't expecting. That ambush is not a sign that you're not coping. It's a sign that the grief is doing its work. All of that is grief, not just the sadness, all of it. And if you've been carrying any of those things alongside the sadness and wondering if they're normal or appropriate, I want to say clearly that they are. They're what grief actually looks like when it's allowed to be honest. Grief is your nervous system processing the loss of someone or something it had organized itself around. When someone important to us dies, the system doesn't just process an absence, it processes the loss of a relationship that was woven into how you understood the world, how you felt safe, how you moved through your days. The anger in grief is often the part that responds to the rupture, to the wrongness of the absence, to the things that were said and not said, done and not done, to the realization that the future you were expecting no longer exists in the form that you expected. The numbness is often a form of protection. The nervous system managing volume of what's happening by turning the output down for a while. It's not failure to feel, it's the system doing what the systems do when the input is overwhelming. The anxiety is often about a new awareness of impermanence. Loss teaches us what we already knew, but could afford not to think about. It makes mortality and fragility real in a way that most of us, before a significant loss, are able to keep at a comfortable distance. Something that almost never gets enough space in conversations about bereavement is what grief does to the sense of who you are. Grief changes you, not just in the sense of making you sadder or more aware of loss, it changes who you are. Every significant relationship shapes us. The way you understood yourself in relation to that person, the ways their presence organized your world, the version of yourself that existed in that relationship. And when they're gone, that dimension of self is disrupted. This is why grief can make you feel unfamiliar to yourself, why you can feel like you don't quite know how to be without them, why the question of who you are now in the absence of this person can sit quietly in the background of everything for a long time. That's not a sign you're not coping. It's a sign that the loss was real and significant enough to leave a mark on your identity, which is also, if you can hold it in this way, is a measure of how much the relationship mattered. I want to speak carefully here because I don't want to hurry anything, but I also think hope is part of an honest picture. And the women I've worked with have taught me something real about what the other side of grief can hold. Grief that's allowed to be its full self, including the anger, the numbness, the relief, the anxiety, the waves that arrive at inconvenient moments. Grief that's not edited or managed or hurried tends to move. Not away, grief doesn't leave, but it changes shape. It becomes something carried differently, less a wound, more a weight you've learned how to hold without pulling you under. Women who've done this work describe being able to hold both things at once, the loss and the life, the grief and the going forward, not as a contradiction, but as the truth of what it is to have lost and loved. And sometimes, with time, something unexpected. A version of yourself that is, in some ways, more honest, more clear about what matters, more willing to say what you feel. Loss has a way of burning away certain pretenses. What remains can become more genuinely yours. I want to close this episode the way I opened it, slowly and with care. If you're in grief right now, I want you to know that whatever you're feeling is allowed. The anger, the numbness, the relief, the waves that come without warning, all of it is part of this. None of it means you're doing it wrong. You don't have to carry this alone. If a cuppa and a chat is something that would help, a free conversation with me, a place where you can talk honestly about where you are, you can find out more at happya.co.uk. I'll be here next Wednesday, so take care of yourself this week.